Kashimo's arrival onto the battlefield was just as abrupt as his death in Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 238. Despite unveiling his cursed technique in the previous chapter and putting up, honestly, a pretty decent fight on a weakened Sukuna, Kashimo was completely flabbergasted when Sukuna regained his Heian era form. Kashimo literally called Sukuna beautiful before dashing in to throw hands, only to realize that he brought 2 hands and a leg to fight someone with 4 arms. Kashimo gets smacked around in speed blitz as he tries to scream at Sukuna before being met with the same move that put Gojo to rest, a dismantle that cuts the world itself. Kashimo is able to fare a little bit better, only losing an arm instead of his life, and Sukuna tells him about Yorozu, and then he proceeds to continue bodying Kashimo, fully putting his 4 arms to use when he grabs both of Kashimo's arms and then delivers devastating punches to his chest and then throws him around. Sukuna wraps things up with Kashimo after tossing him around as he hits him with a literal wave of world-cleaving dismantles that would have killed literally anybody in the verse. This thing looks near impossible to dodge. The last we see of Kashimo is him standing in the same forest he accepted Kenjaku's deal in, as Sukuna finishes teaching Kashimo his lesson. He tells Kashimo that they're so loved because of their strength, and that by simply entertaining the will to fight those beneath them, that by validating them as people through killing them, that, in and of itself, is the ultimate expression of love. Yet, Kashimo still resents the loneliness of strength, and through that, he becomes greedy. That's what separates Sukuna from the likes of Gojo and Kashimo. Sukuna never sought out someone to understand his strength or to fulfill him, not in the same way Gojo had Geto, or the same way Kashimo waited 400 years to fight Sukuna. Sukuna is the ultimate embodiment of Jujutsu Kaisen's mindset, taken to its absolute extreme. He lives exclusively to his own desires, and finding someone who can understand him has never been a consideration. Leaving off with that, we return to the real world as Hakari's domain breaks, dropping not just him and Urame into the battlefield, but Yuji and Higuruma arriving as well. Needless to say, as a D1 Kashimo supporter, this chapter hurt. To have Kashimo built up as this guy with an insatiable desire to fight, reserving his curse technique for Sukuna to the point where he was willing to die rather than use it, only to kill him off in 2 chapters, was disappointing. Kashimo didn't even have the time to drop any bangers during this fight, if that's what you want to call it. There was no "that's what losers think," no "turn up the volume because this is a funeral for the living," and there was definitely no "you may be immortal but I'll kill you anyway." This fight simply lacked the charisma that Hakari vs Kashimo was oozing with. There was even still plenty left on the table for Kashimo to show off just in regards to his technique. Considering the fact that his technique allows him to use literally all lightning-based phenomena as a weapon, Kashimo could have had a plethora of different moves he could have used. Everything from manipulating sound waves to whatever his domain might have been was thrown out the window the moment Gege decided to kill him with this chapter. He is literally stated to have surpassed the limits of mankind, only to be no-diffed 1 chapter later. And for a character that radiates as much him energy as Kashimo, I think that's a real shame. But beyond the disappointing showing Kashimo got, I think this fight has a greater, more narratively based flaw. As it currently stands, this fight serves almost 0 purpose. Its sole purpose is to just remove Kashimo from the story so the other sorcerers can get a chance to do something, but in its execution, it falls extremely short. As I alluded to earlier, the amount of build-up that Kashimo got was far greater than what this fight provided. Introducing a character whose 5th line expresses their desire to fight Sukuna, only to have that character last around 14 pages and do more than give everyone more exposition about how great Sukuna is, in my opinion, bad writing. I'm not opposed to Kashimo dying. In fact, I was fully expecting Kashimo to lose the fight. But what really sets it over the edge for me is the fact that Kashimo literally managed to do nothing. The best you could argue for Kashimo is that he forced Sukuna to regain his Heian era form, but if everyone decided to jump him, he would have done that anyway. Kashimo doesn't damage Sukuna. He doesn't reveal some crippling weakness that the rest of the cast could exploit, and he doesn't even manage to use his technique fully. What he does manage to do is give the readers another exposition dump on how immeasurably strong Sukuna is. This fight serves as a plot device to shuffle Kashimo out of the story so that the rest of the cast can do something. While that by itself is not bad, in fact, I'd argue it's required for the plot to move forward, the way it does so, as I've stated before, just ends up coming up as incredibly disappointing. That being said, I don't think everything in this fight was disappointing or bad. What we did get to see of Kashimo was really cool. For the 2 chapters he was present, he still had part of the charisma he had when he fought Hikari, and his arrival still establishes him as a GOAT. Tanking an attack from Sukuna's curse tool and emerging from the smoke immediately to ask him a question goes crazy. Even something as little as his constant smile while he throws hands continues to sell Kashimo as a real one. And I always enjoy the philosophical part of JJK, so having Sukuna divulge his mindset to Kashimo and give him his answer was still interesting for me. But that's about the extent of stuff I enjoyed from this fight. So accounting for all my criticisms and praises, I'd say Kashimo vs Sukuna is not a good fight. The little we saw of Kashimo was great. Part of his charisma was maintained, and his technique is really cool. The fight choreography was great as always, and I've always had a soft spot for JJK mentality talks. But this fight simply did not pay off on the insane levels of hype built up for Kashimo. It's possible that this fight was never meant to be some extravagant 3 to 4 chapter fight that had Sukuna on the ropes. It's possible that Gege never intended for Kashimo to do anything other than get fodderized by Sukuna. But regardless of what Gege had envisioned for this fight, it all gets overshadowed by what Gege had built up, and ultimately cripples the fight when looked at through the lens of the whole story. In a vacuum, sure, the fight's kinda cool, but in the context of the story, the fight leaves a lot to be desired. And ultimately, it's through the story that this fight can either improve its quality or continue being mediocre at best. If it's revealed that Kashimo did manage to have some lasting effect on Sukuna, or did actually help the cast in some way, then this fight might go up. But if my criticisms are true and Kashimo really did do nothing, then I'll have been wrong about Kashimo vs Sukuna.